This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Well, this week's PR Podcast plug goes out to former guest and friend of the show, Warren Weeks. Warren is a master media trainer, and he recently celebrated his 20th anniversary as a business owner and a founder. Go back and take a listen to the episode that Warren was on. Terrific guy. And really knows his stuff when it comes to media training and how you train people to say the things that they need to say, to have the confidence that they need when they get in front of a TV camera or when they're talking with a print reporter, and even gives a terrific example of what he terms the worst media interview he's ever seen. And I will not spoil anything for you. Go back and listen to that episode. So congratulations to Warren Weeks on celebrating 20 years. And there's your PR podcast plug, my friend. Now on with our show for today. We have got a terrific guest. Jon Morris is founder and CEO of Ramsay Innovations, one of many companies he's created as a serial entrepreneur. At the age of just 30, he started the digital marketing agency Rise Interactive. And when he sold Rise 16 years later, it was one of the largest independent digital agencies in the world. Much of Rise's success was due to having a financial infrastructure that provided insights that led to sound strategic planning, which enabled Jon and the Rise team to make the right decisions quicker and more often. Now, through Ramsay Innovations, Jon's new passion is helping other agencies grow and thrive through finance, just like Rise did. I'm personally interested in hearing what Jon's got to say because I'm a brand new business owner myself. Jon, welcome to the PR Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Jody. Really excited to be here.
So let's start at the beginning. What is your definition of a serial entrepreneur?
I think my definition is someone who's a little bit crazy and someone who creates repeated businesses, whether successful or unsuccessful, continually tries to be a business owner and is probably on at least their third business.
Is it as simple as just having a good idea and running with it? Or is it, more thought out, like you've got the business plan, you've got the legs under you? I mean, tell me what goes into your thought process when you're thinking about starting a new business.
What I would say when you're starting a new business, the first thing is, I really think you need to do soul searching to determine why are you starting this new business and what does success look like. When I started Rise, I was interviewing my chief operating officer, but at that time it was for an account manager position. He was in my 1,300 square foot condo, which was our office. And, he asked me what's the goals? And I said, my goal is to create the world's largest independent digital agency. That's what I wanted to do as a one-person company. Now, I had a client of mine whose revenue is $5.1 million in revenue. And I asked what his dream is, and his dream is to get to $6 million in revenue and never be larger. And so we all do this for reasons, and those reasons are oftentimes different. So it's what is important to you? Are you looking to build a large organization? Are you looking to build a boutique or a lifestyle business? And so that would be my first thing is do soul searching. And by the way, there's no wrong answer. Both those answers are great answers. They're just different answers.
Yeah, it's a good point that you really have to understand why you're jumping in the pool in the first place and sort of where you want to get to, because I guess you say if you have no direction, you're going to get there, right?
Yeah. It's actually my mentor used to say to me, if you don't know where you're going, all roads take you there.
That's a good one. That's a good one. So what did it take you to start your business? Where did you jump in? And how did you get started? I mean, are you hiring out of the gate? Are you borrowing funds and bootstrapping? What are you doing to get that first, let's say, 6 months?
So the nice thing about a PR firm or any professional service company is it's not a capital intensive industry. You can start out of the gates with, just your own skills and take it one client at a time. So when I started Rise, I won $10,000 in a business plan competition, and that was my seed money. And I can tell you $10,000 doesn't take you very far. But At that moment in time, I was a big runner. I used to run a lot of marathons. And if you ever do marathon training, it is a 20-week training program. And your first long run is a 6-mile run. And then the next week you go up to 7, and then you go down to 5, and then you go up to 9, and then up to 10, and then down to 7. And so it's kind of like 2 up, 1 down, 2 up, 1 down. And I took that philosophy and I applied it to growing my agency. So it's interesting, when you're in business school, they teach you to, raise lots of money from venture capitalists and do it for 3 to 7 years and then sell it for, some crazy amount of money is like the kind of vision. My vision was very different. It's let's build an amazing business and let's do it for 20 years. Let's have fun along the way while we're doing it. And so my goal was really simple. I want to make incremental investments every single year to make my business better than next year. All I wanted to do was beat the year before. So my first year in business, I did 12,000 in revenue. The next year I did 80,000. The next year I did 350. I then did 750, and so the idea is it just kept on scaling and growing from there.
That sounds like a terrific success story, and one that I'm personally familiar with too, because that's how I helped to build a PR business for the agency that I just left. You can see how personal this is for me, and this is another reason why I really wanted to talk with you. It started that from zero as well. Had a pipeline of business from the overall services that the agency was selling. So I was PR inside of a larger advertising and marketing scheme. So you've got business naturally coming in. If you don't have that pipeline, obviously you're going out and you're beating the bushes, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any effective strategies for business owners or even just people who are inside of a PR shop and maybe they're looking to drum up their own book of business? What are some of the effective strategies that you went out with and used to find business?
So I could be wrong in this theory, but one of my theories is that you never get to skip a step. So, you sometimes hear about that story where it's like they were a 3-person company and they won a $20 million contract. And the next thing you know, they were, off to the races. That never happened to me. My very first client was $50 a month. And I didn't care about making the money. What I cared about were stories. People buy based on relevant stories to their problem that you believe that they're going to solve. And so I would win a client at $50 a month, but what I got in the contract was the right to use their logo. I got the right to use a testimonial. I got the right to build a relationship. And also in a sales pitch, I got the right to the story. And it's all about the right to win. So if you have no experience and you have no clients, and you got to convince somebody to trust you, what is your right to win? I started my very first agency literally 2 days after graduating college. And my right to win at that moment in time was I know nothing. My competitors are charging $75 to $150 an hour. I'm going to charge you $20 an hour. And I promise you I'm going to make some mistakes. But if you're willing to give me a shot, you'll save a little bit of money. You'll be my guinea pig and I get to learn. And so that was my right to win, was price, but over time, you start getting more and more rights to win. And I'll just give you an example. I use Rise as an example. Our sales team there is world-class sales team. In fact, it's got to be one of the best sales teams, I think you'll ever meet. But we would get tons of global pitches. And when it comes to global, they need people who are going to have offices in multiple countries with, people who can translate and speak the local language and know all the local people. And I believe they made a lot of progress since I've left. But we would never win those pitches, or we would very rarely win those pitches, despite having an amazing product and an amazing sales team, because we didn't really have the right to win at that moment in time from a global business standpoint. And so I bring that up is that you have to constantly be thinking about where you are in your journey and where you have the right to play and the right to win. And so once I won, 2-figure monthly clients, I earned the right to win 3-figure monthly clients. And then I won 4-figure. And then I won 5-figure. And then I won, bigger 5-figure clients. And it just kept on going. But I never skipped a step. I didn't go from like 1,000 a month to 1 million a month.
That's great perspective. I love the way that you laid that out. Did you have a team right out of the gate? Did you have other people? And how specifically were you paying those people? Or were they kind of like all living the dream?
So I'll use Rise and then I'll use this current company. Rise was a bootstrapped organization. I used that $10,000. My initial employees is as I won some deals, I would hire some more junior level people to help me support it on a part-time basis so that I could sell what more and they could do some more of the admin related work. And as I grew my revenue, I would increase my cost accordingly. Just to give you some benchmark numbers, a golden agency, a PR firm in terms of like its performance is going to grow at 20% top line growth. So their year over year revenue at 20% and 20% of their revenue will be profit. I had a much lower target for many years. So I was probably targeting around 5% of our revenue as opposed to 20% so that I could fuel the growth of the company. But I had no debt. I always stayed within the means of the revenue that was coming in. And on the flip side, with this company, I personally invested a ton of money into the company. So I hired people right out of the gate, and we've been building budgeting and forecasting software specifically for agencies and PR firms for the last year and a half. Had 8 full-time people working on that with no product until just a month ago. So, I chose a different path and a different acceleration of the business.
But I would imagine that each path that you're choosing conforms with the goal that you've set out for yourself and sort of the vision that you have. Are you planning, 6 months at a time, a year at a time? Are you just living the big picture all the time?
So I generally plan long-term, medium-term, and short-term. And so we have an aspirational goal. And then from there, we have a 3-year goal. And then we have a 1-year goal. And when it comes to your 1-year goal, I always recommend people have to have 4 goals that they're trying to achieve within a 12-month time period. Everyone should have a revenue goal. They should have a profit goal. They should have a cash goal, which is oftentimes incredibly neglected. The company that bought Rise was a company called Quad Graphics, and David Honan, who was the CFO at the time, is probably one of the most brilliant CFOs I've ever met. And he had a line to me that, doesn't sound that impressive, like when you just hear the words, but when you think about it, it's very true. It's like, when you have a lot of cash, you can do a lot of really cool strategic things. And so what I want people to do is build up their cash so that they could do really cool strategic things. And then the last one is an infrastructure goal. And the infrastructure goal is, what investments are you going to make this year so that your business is better a year from now than it is today? And those investments could be sales and marketing investments. They could be, building out your recruiting infrastructure. It could be like, here are ideas to make our services better. It could be process improvement. But the idea is that you want to be able to say, I feel undoubtedly our business is better today than it was a year ago. And so those are the investments that you generally want to think about and make.
Are there mistakes? I mean, I'm sure there are mistakes, right? We all make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Are there mistakes you made along the way that kind of stick with you and have turned into like lessons you put into practice on a daily basis? And talk a little bit too about, how making mistakes or making errors and learning from them make you a better business owner.
So I'm going to put it into making mistakes. And also there are times we just lost. Okay, where it wasn't necessarily a mistake, but we got, we didn't win a deal. But I'll start with mistakes. I started an agency 2 days out of school, 22 years old. I did it for about 5 years, grew to about 10 people, and became a dot-com casualty. It was 2000, 2001 when the dot-com bust happened, which is amazing how many years ago that feels. And for the longest period of time, I blamed the industry. I used to tell people, I was like, it wasn't that the pendulum swung the other way, the pendulum got cut. And I was like, you know what? That's really not true. It's not like digital marketing went down to zero. There were plenty of agencies that survived the dot-com crash, but I had poor financial infrastructure and I had poor HR infrastructure. And part of it was I had some really good people, but they weren't the most talented people. And, that there were probably people I could have hired and used that money more intelligently had I done things differently. And so when I started my second agency, which was Rise, I had to look myself in the mirror and understand that the worst part of owning an agency is that 80% of your cost are people, and those people are people you love, care about, and have emotional attachment to. And that you're going to have to be completely objective in your decision-making about, are you hiring the best person or not? And if you are not, you have to be willing to make the tough decision to make your business better. And, I came to the decision that I could do that. And I think that was a huge difference with Rise. Is in order to get a job at Rise, you have to take an analytics exam. It's got a 22% pass rate. And we became really focused on hiring the best of the best and putting an A team together, especially when you're small. Like if you only have 10 people, you can't afford for 2 of those 10 people to be weak links. Like you have to have really strong links across the board. So that's one example. What I would also say is there are a lot of pitches I lost. And, like one of them, we used to do display advertising. And display advertising was old school. Like we would negotiate the banner ads with like a sales rep. And we got beat out for this one company, from this company that was doing something called programmatic advertising, and never heard of it before. I was like, wow, we just got out innovated. Within 2 weeks, we stood up a programmatic trading desk. So we took that loss, we turned that loss into a bunch of wins, because just like I never heard about it before, most of our competitors hadn't heard about it before. And so we were able to take advantage of that in a pretty serious way.
That's a really important point. And the sort of the industry that we're in, whether it's marketing or advertising or public relations, or really any, like you said, any kind of service organization,
Yep.
the service environment is always changing. Not unlike,
Yep.
people complain that the algorithm on Instagram or TikTok is changing, right? What happened to my
Yeah.
views?
Yeah.
You constantly have to be learning, right? And you have to be willing, I guess, to maybe take the L and
Yeah.
then turn it around.
Yep.
That's great. That's a great story. What advice would you give to someone who wants to go solo, or let's say maybe they're starting out, right? I mean, I get approached by a lot of people who are either just out of college, or maybe they got that job and it's not the thing they wanted, and they're thinking about going solo. Or what are some of the advice maybe that you give to people who are looking to either start their own business or just go out there on their own?
So I'm gonna go with the good and the bad. So first of all, on the good side, to me, like running a business is a strategy game. I personally love it. I love all the elements of it, but I want you to understand that there's 2 components to the job. There is the marketing component to the job. So like I'm going to be a PR person. And then there is the business component of the job. And you have to think about, which do you want to do? I happen to love the running the business component. And I find a lot of energy behind that. It gets me really excited. So if that's something that you enjoy and you want to like learn how to run your own business and think about sales and marketing and operations and, so-and-so left and what are you going to do about it and how you're going to strategize, like some people that stresses them out, some people get excited about that. On the flip side, it is very energy consuming. So even when I'm not working, my mind is still on the business. Like I don't have a shut off button to be like, okay, I'm not going to think about Ramsay today. I'm just going to focus on this. So, that's something you just have to accept as a reality of like owning your own business. The other thing, and I'm not saying this to scare people, I want people to just understand the reality of going into the PR industry. There are 120,000 agencies just in the United States. And that means that there are tens of thousands of PR firms of all different sizes. So from the one person PR person to the Edelmans of the world, you're going to have a lot of competition. And so this is actually, where I talk about the success of Rise, where budgeting and forecasting is so important, is I want you to be able to answer what I call the 2-question test. So the first question is, what makes you different than the competition? I typically hear one of 3 answers. You get to talk to more senior people, our customer service is better, or we're data-driven. So it's the second question that you have to be able to answer. And what I'm going to explain is that you don't have to answer it where it's where you are today, but you have to answer it to it's where you want to go. And that second question is, I just saw 50 other PR firms that said the exact same thing of their differentiator. So how do you have better customer service than them? Or how are you more data driven? And if you can't answer that question, you need a budget to go hire someone to help you figure that out. And then you have to go budget to make it reality. A lot of people ask me, like, what makes me different than the competition? I'm just going to use, Ramsay as an example, then I'll use Rise as an example. I hired 8 full-time people dedicated to building a budgeting and forecasting software specifically for agencies. So I can save people substantially large amounts of time if they're using Excel or Google Sheets. I can give them more insights into their business. Or if you're in what I'll call a horizontal budgeting software, which is designed for every industry, it doesn't understand the nuances of, a hiring schedule and utilization and realization and all the things that go on with an agency and all the core metrics that you should be looking at. And so it's a unique product and service offering that's geared towards one small niche. On Rise was a generalist agency, but our difference was we were data driven, just like everyone else, but we were very focused on one type of data, which was media data. And today, Rise has 55 full-time engineers building technology that is focused on bringing all of the digital media data together to answer questions that nobody else could answer at a speed that nobody else could match. And so it helps identify waste and redeploy that waste to the areas that make you more scalable. And so what I'm saying is, if you go into PR or any agency, I really want you to think about, what is your path to creating a differentiator so that you can scale and turn into a much larger organization?
Yeah, that's great. And that's the value proposition of Ramsay that you just described, sort of how you get outside of the box of those 3 basic vanilla differentiators that I'll call them.
Exactly. Yep. And I personally love people who niche down on specific verticals but it's not just saying like, I'm going after this vertical and it's a marketing thing. It's that they make it real. So you make the investment and you spend the money to really be the best at owning that vertical.
That's great. This has been a great conversation. I learned a whole bunch, John. So thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We're going to segue now into the rapid fire question portion of our podcast. This is where we steal a page from inside the actor studio, ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions. John, you've heard us before, so what's on the way. And you're coming in from Chicago today, so we want to get some local Chicago flavor in some of these answers. Maybe rapid fire question for Jon Morris. Number 1, what is your favorite news source?
Have to go with Wall Street Journal, but since you want me to pull in Chicago, I'll say Crane Chicago Business as well.
There we go. There we go. Rapid fire question number 2. What is your favorite social media platform?
I would have to say Facebook and LinkedIn. LinkedIn for business, Facebook for personal.
We don't get a lot of Facebook. Okay, tell me, you use Facebook for personal. That's where you people are?
I don't use Instagram or any of the other platforms. So yeah, I'd have to say Facebook. I actually also found Facebook's really good for business. Like a lot of Facebook groups out there that people are much more active than LinkedIn. And then my theory behind that too.
What's the theory?
My theory is that people go to Facebook and actually read the feed because it's their friends doing posts of their family, etc. And people probably don't really read the feed that much of LinkedIn. So even though it's a business platform, it's just not that interesting when you're getting hit up with all these different businesses trying to sell themselves. And so when you see a post from a group you're in Facebook, you see it, where if there's a post for a group in LinkedIn, I don't think you see it. So that's why I think you can get further traction with a Facebook group.
Interesting observation. Love it. Rapid fire question number 3, coffee or alcohol?
Definitely coffee, barely drink. And I have not had my coffee today, so I'm really disappointed about that.
Yeah. I need Java too, constantly. Rapid fire question number 4. What's your favorite on the run food?
I don't know if you ever heard of Potbelly's before, Potbelly Sandwich Works. So another Chicago story, but the original grew up right by my house. I was their best customer before they sold. And for nostalgia, and also because it's the best restaurant ever created, I highly recommend it.
Excellent. And rapid fire question number 5. What do you want to be after you finish this career?
I want to own my own youth soccer club team.
What a great thing to do. Yeah. You into soccer?
Yeah, I played through college and coach. I have 3 daughters, coach all 3 of them. And it's my passion.
I love it. I'm a coach myself. I coach my daughter's baseball team. And she's going to be the next Aaron Judge. She's terrific.
That's really awesome.
Good stuff. Well, Jon, this has been a great conversation. Please let people know how they can find you online.
Yep, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can email me at jon@ramsayinnovations.com, or you can go to ramsayinnovations.com.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Jon, for sharing your insights today. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show, connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at the PR Podcast, and send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Appold. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher on all the socials and on the web at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.